I don't care whose parent gets fired. This company doesn't carry dead weight. CEO Ethan Brooks said it loud enough for everyone in his boardroom to hear. What he didn't notice was the young black woman pushing her cleaning cart past his glass-walled office. Her name was Patricia Johnson, 19 years old, earning $8 an hour on the night shift. And she had just heard this white CEO announce that he was firing her father. Her father, Raymond Johnson, was a black janitor who'd mopped CyberCore's floors for 12 years. One accidentally unplugged server, and Ethan Brooks erased him. 72 hours later, at 2:43 a.m. on a Wednesday, every system in Ethan Brooks's $2 billion company crashed. Hospital ventilators went offline across 217 facilities. His 20 elite engineers, all those Stanford and MIT graduates with their six-figure salaries, couldn't fix it. That's when Patricia Johnson, Raymond's daughter, walked into his war room. CyberCore's headquarters was architected entirely around transparency. Glass walls divided every space, open floor plans eliminated private offices. Even the executive bathrooms had frosted glass that still revealed silhouettes. It was Ethan's design philosophy made physical. Radical openness, he called it in his TED Talk that had been viewed 3 million times. Everything visible, nothing hidden. A workplace where ideas flowed freely and hierarchy dissolved in light. Except the transparency worked perfectly well at hiding people like Patricia Johnson. She moved through these spaces like a ghost, seen but never noticed, present but never acknowledged, existing in a category of human being that Silicon Valley's architects had simply forgotten to design for. Patricia was 19 years old, small-framed at 5'3", maybe 110 pounds. Dark hair pulled back in a severe ponytail that kept it clear of her face during long shifts. Her gray uniform bore the logo of an outsourced janitorial company, the kind that paid minimum wage, offered zero benefits, and could terminate employment without cause. The battered laptop bag hanging from her shoulder, held together with duct tape and decorated with faded programming stickers, drew no attention from executives she passed daily. Why would it? To them, she was infrastructure, human furniture, as worthy of notice as the air conditioning vents. The acquisition closes in exactly 72 hours, Ethan continued, his voice carrying that Silicon Valley blend of casual confidence and underlying threat. He paced before a massive monitor displaying CyberCore's stock price, a beautiful ascending curve representing his entire identity. Titan Group is paying $2 billion for perfection, not sentiment, not loyalty, not legacy employees, perfection. Patricia paused near the recycling bin outside the boardroom, emptying it with practiced slowness. This was her technique, refined over 3 years. Move methodically, make minimal noise, avoid eye contact, become so thoroughly forgettable that people spoke freely around you, forgetting you had ears and a brain processing every word, and Patricia heard everything. Our proprietary AI platform, Prometheus, currently manages critical infrastructure for 217 client organizations across 14 countries, Ethan said, his designer watch catching the recessed lighting as he gestured. The watch probably cost more than Patricia made in 8 months. Hospital ventilators, power grid management, financial transaction processing, traffic control networks, municipal water treatment. These aren't just clients, they're life-critical dependencies. One mistake, one scandal, one inefficiency, and Titan walks. Deal dies. Stock collapses. Everyone loses. Margaret Anderson, the chief operating officer and the only board member who'd ever made eye contact with Patricia, cleared her throat carefully. The staff reductions you're proposing, Ethan, some of these people have been with us for over a decade. Raymond Johnson has been here 12 years. Don't we owe them consideration? Necessary optimization? Ethan interrupted smoothly, the interruption itself a power move establishing dominance. Dead weight includes anyone who doesn't directly contribute to market valuation. That starts with facilities staff. They're outsourced anyway. Cutting them doesn't show up in our core metrics. Patricia's hand tightened on the trash bag. She knew what was coming. Had known for 2 weeks since overhearing preliminary budget discussions, but hearing it stated so baldly still hit like a physical blow. Ethan tapped his tablet with one manicured finger. Raymond Johnson. Facilities maintenance. 12 years with the company. Current salary, $52,000 annually. Pension contributions accruing. Health insurance costs. His total compensation package costs $73,000. He looked up. That could fund 3 months of a senior engineer's salary. Anyone want to explain which asset provides more value? The silence was heavy with complicity. Patricia felt her pulse hammering. Her father. They were discussing Raymond Johnson, her gentle father who'd raised her alone after her mother died, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, who'd brought young Patricia to these offices during school breaks because he couldn't afford childcare, who'd taught her that honest work held inherent dignity, like he was a line item on a spreadsheet. Last week, Raymond unplugged one of our development servers while cleaning. Ethan continued, his tone almost triumphant. Caused a 15-minute downtime, just 15 minutes. Do you understand what that costs in service-level agreement penalties? How that looks to clients who trust us with life-critical systems? It was clearly an accident, Margaret ventured, though her voice had already lost conviction. Raymond's record is spotless, 12 years without incidents, 1 mistake. Reliability is baseline, not achievement, Ethan said with finality. Excellence is requirement. Have human resources process his termination today. Security escort, professional and clean, no drama. Patricia forced herself to keep moving, maintaining mechanical rhythm even as everything inside her screamed. Her father, who'd shown up every shift for 12 years, who'd trained newer janitors, who'd taken genuine pride in his work, who'd treated discarded equipment with more care than Ethan Brooks treated people, was about to be erased. For an accident. For being human. For costing slightly more than a spreadsheet said he was worth. She finished the recycling bin and pushed her cart toward the elevator, moving at the same steady pace. No rushing, no visible emotion. She'd learned that showing feelings made you real, and being real meant being vulnerable. Better to be invisible. The 3rd-floor utility closet had become Patricia's sanctuary. Other janitors used it for supplies and breaks. Patricia used it as her office, her classroom, her laboratory, her laptop, ancient, salvaged from CyberCore's electronics recycling bin 3 years ago, screen cracked, keyboard missing 2 keys, sat on an overturned bucket. This closet was where Patricia Johnson had taught herself to code. Between emptying trash bins and mopping floors, Patricia had absorbed knowledge like someone dying of thirst. Discarded technical manuals became textbooks. Overheard engineering conversations became lectures. CyberCore's careless security practices. Engineers leaving laptops unlocked, writing passwords on sticky notes, discussing sensitive architecture in public spaces, became her graduate education. She wasn't entirely proud of the ethical gray area, accessing systems without permission, even just to learn, even without causing harm. She knew it crossed lines. But poverty didn't leave room for ethical purity. Community college tuition came due every semester. Her father's car needed constant repairs. And somewhere in trying to learn enough to escape their circumstances, Patricia discovered something unexpected. She had a gift. Not just for coding, lots of people could code. Patricia understood systems at a deeper level. She saw how they connected, how they failed, how human behavior created vulnerabilities no firewall could patch. Security wasn't about technology. It was about psychology, organizational culture, blind spots created by arrogance and assumption. 3 weeks ago, Patricia had noticed something deeply wrong with Prometheus. The AI platform's architecture had fundamental flaws. Legacy code patched hastily. Security protocols implemented by people who understood individual components, but not the larger ecosystem. Vulnerabilities layered on vulnerabilities, creating cascade failure points that would be invisible until someone specifically looked. Patricia had looked, and she'd seen disaster approaching. She'd spent 2 weeks analyzing Prometheus from every angle, mapping attack surfaces, identifying critical weaknesses. Then she'd written a detailed 20-page report, complete with proof-of-concept code and step-by-step remediation instructions. She'd sent it to CyberCore's security team from an anonymous email. It bounced back immediately. Spam filter. Her community college email domain triggered automatic rejection. She tried again through a different channel, ignored. She submitted it through the IT help desk. Deleted without being read. Nobody listened to warnings from people who didn't exist in their world. Patricia opened her laptop now, the ancient machine taking 2 minutes to boot. Her monitoring scripts, unauthorized but harmless, set up months ago to track Prometheus's health, loaded slowly. Most metrics looked normal, but one alert flashed urgent red. Anomalous network activity. Foreign IP addresses probing the system's perimeter. Suspicious connection attempts suggesting deep reconnaissance. Someone was inside CyberCore's systems. Not just inside, they'd been there for weeks, quietly mapping every corner of Prometheus, learning its rhythms, preparing for something catastrophic. Patricia's fingers flew across the keyboard, diving deeper. The attack pattern was sophisticated, patient, methodical. Whoever was behind this knew exactly what they were doing and had intimate knowledge of CyberCore's systems. This wasn't random. This was personal. She needed to warn someone. But who? The same security team that had dismissed her previous warnings, the same executives who walked past her without seeing her, the same CEO who just decided her father's 12 years of service could be erased. Patricia's phone buzzed. Text from her father. "Heading to work, Mija. Love you. Don't study too late." She stared at the message. In 3 hours, security would escort Raymond Johnson from the building he'd cleaned for 12 years. His daughter would watch from behind glass, powerless despite possessing knowledge that could save them all. Outside the closet, CyberCore hummed with activity. Engineers debated algorithms. Executives scheduled champagne for Friday's celebration. Marketing drafted press releases about innovation and disruption. None of them noticed the countdown happening in real time. Patricia looked at her screen one final time, watching red alerts multiply, intrusion patterns intensifying. Someone was about to destroy CyberCore, and the only person who could stop it didn't even have a security badge to access the main floors. Patricia's laptop screen flashed crimson. Critical vulnerability detected, system breach imminent, coordinated attack launching in 4 hours, 31 minutes, and 52 seconds. At precisely 2:43 a.m. on Wednesday morning, 71 hours before CyberCore's acquisition was scheduled to close, Prometheus died. Not gracefully, not with warnings. The AI platform that managed life-critical infrastructure for 217 organizations simply stopped responding, and every emergency alert system in CyberCore's headquarters began shrieking simultaneously. Patricia was still in the building, naturally. The graveyard janitorial shift ran until 6 in the morning. She'd just finished the executive floor when every screen in every room flashed red in perfect synchronization. It was almost beautiful in a terrible way, like watching dominoes fall in reverse, chaos spreading outward from a central point of failure. Within 12 minutes, the building flooded with people. Ethan arrived first, still wearing yesterday's clothes, his carefully curated image completely shattered. His elite engineering team followed. Stanford graduates, MIT PhDs, engineers poached from Google and Meta with 6-figure signing bonuses, the kind of people who were supposed to prevent exactly this disaster. Patricia watched from shadows near the stairwell as they swarmed the server room in organized panic. Daniel Martinez, the lead engineer who'd literally written 2 textbooks on distributed systems, emerged 5 minutes later looking like he'd seen something incomprehensible. His face had gone the color of old milk. "It's not a bug," he said to Ethan, voice barely steady. "Someone's inside our systems. This is a deliberate attack." "Inside?" Ethan's voice went flat. "What kind of attack?" "Sophisticated ransomware exploiting a 0-day vulnerability we didn't know existed." Daniel pulled up screens showing infection spreading through Prometheus like cancer through tissue. "They've been mapping our architecture for weeks, and now every client system is failing. Hospital ventilators losing connectivity, traffic control going dark, financial transactions frozen, 217 organizations, millions of users, all experiencing catastrophic failure simultaneously." "How long to fix it?" Daniel exchanged glances with other engineers, a silent conversation communicating everything Ethan didn't want to hear. "Weeks, maybe months. This code is adaptive. It's responding faster than we can counter it." Ethan's $15,000 Swiss watch showed 71 hours until the Titan audit. His face drained of color as implications crashed through his consciousness. Ethan slammed both fists on the conference table hard enough to crack the imported wood. "Unless someone here can work miracles, we're finished by Friday morning." Patricia knew with absolute certainty she could fix it. Not arrogance, factual certainty. She'd spent 3 months analyzing Prometheus's architecture, every vulnerability memorized, every attack vector documented. Her community college thesis, rejected as too theoretical, was literally a blueprint for preventing this exact scenario. The ransomware followed patterns she'd predicted with disturbing accuracy, but knowing the solution and having anyone listen existed in separate universes. She tried email first, drafting a detailed message at 3:17 a.m. while chaos erupted 3 floors above. She attached her analysis, her remediation code, comprehensive implementation instructions. Subject line: Urgent. Prometheus ransomware solution. Immediate action required. Lives at risk. She sent it to Cybercore's security team distribution list. Auto reply arrived in 4 seconds. Your message has been flagged as potential spam due to unauthorized sender domain. If this matter is urgent, please contact our help desk at extension 5000 during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Normal business hours. People were dying right now. Patricia called the help desk immediately, got transferred 3 times, first to general IT support, then to facilities coordination because her employee ID routed her there automatically, then to a voicemail system that announced it was full and disconnected. She tried again. Different operator. I have critical information about the system attack. I know how to fix it. What's your employee ID? Patricia read it off, keyboard clicking. Ma'am, you're classified as facilities staff. Technical issues need to be reported by someone with appropriate credentials. I'm not reporting an issue, I'm offering a solution. Our engineers are handling it. If you have facilities concerns, submit a ticket. Otherwise, I need to keep this line clear. Click. Patricia stared at her phone. She possessed the exact knowledge Cybercore needed. She existed inside their building. She was desperate to help, and she couldn't penetrate bureaucratic layers designed to keep people like her voiceless. She tried direct approach next. During cleaning rounds, she deliberately lingered near the war room, pushing her cart slowly past assembled engineers. She watched them mapping attack vectors on whiteboards, saw immediately where their analysis had gone wrong. They were treating this as external intrusion when the vulnerability was architectural, baked into Prometheus's foundation. "Excuse me," she said quietly to Daniel, who'd always been marginally less dismissive. He barely glanced up. "Trash is fine. Come back later." "I have information about the attack." "Not now." His tone wasn't cruel, just completely absent of awareness she might have something valuable. "Crisis mode." "Thanks." She tried 3 more times over 6 hours, approaching different engineers with careful offers of help. Each rejection hit the same wall: assumptions about credentials, institutional hierarchy, fundamental invisibility of people existing outside the professional class. By Wednesday afternoon, the crisis had metastasized into public disaster. News outlets ran continuous coverage. Cybercore ransomware attack cripples critical infrastructure nationwide. Video showed hospital staff manually operating ventilators, traffic accidents at dark intersections, ATMs frozen while elderly people couldn't access money for medicine. Cybercore's stock dropped 23% before trading halted. 3 major clients announced contract terminations. Titan Group's lawyers sent a formal letter: demonstrate control within 48 hours or the acquisition would be void, penalties enforced, litigation pursued. $2 billion evaporating because Ethan Brooks had built his empire on arrogance rather than actual security. Patricia watched from the cafeteria while eating instant ramen, 85 cents because her checking account held $23 until Friday. Engineers walked past discussing theories in jargon she understood better than they did. She took notes on napkins, not because she needed them, the solution existed clearly in her mind, but writing helped her think through implementation. She tried contacting board members next, found names through public SEC filings, tracked contact information through LinkedIn and corporate directories, left detailed voicemails with executive assistants. "I'm calling with critical information about the security crisis." "Who are you with?" "Cybercore. I work at Cybercore." "In what capacity?" "Facilities. But I have technical knowledge." "So this is building maintenance?" "Board members don't handle operational matters." "Contact your supervisor. This is about the cybersecurity attack. I have the solution." "Board members don't take unsolicited meetings. You need to go through IT first. Round and around. Every path leading to the same wall. No credentials equals no credibility equals non-existence." She tried creating online content, published a detailed blog post on Medium explaining the attack and her solution. 0 views after 3 hours. The algorithm didn't promote content from accounts with no followers. Posted to Reddit's cybersecurity forums, downvoted immediately. Comments, source, credentials, too confident for zero post history, Twitter, LinkedIn, Hacker News. Each platform had mechanisms ensuring voices without existing amplification remained silent. By Wednesday evening, Patricia sat in her apartment's cramped kitchen watching her father stare at his severance letter. 1 week's pay, Raymond said quietly. 12 years. 4,380 days I showed up, and 1 week's pay. The letter thanked Raymond Johnson for his service. Corporate language minimizing liability while maximizing the message. You were useful until expensive, now disposable. I don't understand what I did wrong, Raymond continued, voice cracking. I worked so hard, never complained, took pride in it, and they just threw me away like nothing. Patricia couldn't tell him the truth. Couldn't explain his firing had nothing to do with that unplugged server and everything to do with quarterly earnings optimization. Couldn't say that to people like Ethan Brooks. People like them were just numbers, easily erased when mathematics demanded efficiency. It's not your fault, Dad. 12 years. How do I start over at 55? Who hires 55-year-old janitors with 1 week's severance? Patricia made dinner, rice with frozen vegetables and canned beans, same meal 4 times this week, while her father sat in defeated silence. TV news played continuous cybercore coverage. Reporters interviewed hospital administrators, parents stuck in traffic with sick children, elderly people unable to access accounts for medication money, real people suffering, not abstract problems, but actual human beings damaged, while Patricia possessed the solution locked uselessly in her head. She tried media directly that night, called local news stations explaining she had critical information, got transferred to junior producers who took polite notes but didn't believe her. We'd need to verify with Cybercore's communications team before running a story, one producer explained. But Cybercore won't listen to me, that's the problem. We can't run unverified claims from sources without credibility. If you get someone from Cybercore to confirm, we'd cover it. Circular logic. Perfect. Unbreakable. Designed to ensure gatekeepers remained gates, authority remained unquestioned. People like Patricia stayed exactly where systems wanted them, silent and powerless. Thursday morning brought worse news. Titan Group delivered final ultimatum: restore Prometheus by Friday noon, 36 hours, or acquisition void, $200 million penalties enforced, litigation proceeding. Cybercore's war room had transformed into disaster bunker. Engineers sleeping under desks, sustained by catered meals and pharmaceutical caffeine. Consultants flying in at $50,000 per day just for assessment. Everyone trying everything except listening to the 19-year-old janitor's daughter who'd predicted this exactly. Patricia watched them through glass walls, observed their exhaustion and desperation, understood perfectly why they were failing. They approached the problem from the wrong angle, treating ransomware as external attack when it was internal revenge from someone who understood the system's cultural vulnerabilities. They couldn't see it because assumptions about threats, danger from outside foreign adversaries, blinded them to the possibility that vulnerability was cultural, built into how Ethan had constructed his empire through ruthlessness. She'd explained this in warnings that sat unread in spam folders. The class barrier wasn't just frustrating, it was actively deadly. Hospital patients depending on ventilators. Elderly people unable to access medication money. Traffic intersections dark where fatal accidents were mathematical probabilities. Patricia stood at her apartment window Thursday night, exhausted from her shift, from constant dismissal, from watching preventable suffering. Her father was asleep, his work gloves, passed down through 3 generations, sitting on his dresser like relics from a life that no longer existed. She made a decision. If they wouldn't listen to warnings through proper channels, she'd prove her solution worked directly, even if it meant crossing legal lines, even if it meant risking arrest. Because 36 hours remained, people were suffering, and sometimes moral action required breaking rules designed to protect institutional power rather than human welfare. Sometimes the legal thing and the right thing existed in separate categories. Patricia opened her laptop, took a breath that felt like jumping off a cliff, began mapping Cybercore's backup servers. At 2:51 a.m. Friday morning, she hit enter on the intrusion sequence, uploaded her test patch with complete documentation, and a note. You ignored warnings from someone you deemed beneath notice. Your arrogance is your vulnerability. At exactly 4 a.m., 3 FBI agents knocked on her apartment door hard enough to wake the entire building. Patricia stood at her apartment window Thursday night, watching Silicon Valley's lights glitter in the distance. Her father slept in the next room, his severance letter still on the kitchen table, 1 week's pay for 12 years of loyalty. The TV played continuous coverage of the crisis. A mother interviewed outside a hospital, her child's ventilator having failed for 20 minutes before backup systems engaged. An elderly man who couldn't access his account to buy heart medication. Real people suffering while she possessed the solution. Her phone showed the time, 11:48 p.m. 36 hours until Titan's audit. 36 hours until everything collapsed. She'd tried every proper channel, every email bounced, every call dismissed, every warning ignored. The system wasn't designed to hear people like her. It was designed to keep them silent. But there was one thing she hadn't tried: walking through the front door. Not hacking, not anonymous messages, not trying to prove herself from the outside. Just walking in, finding someone who'd listen, and making them see her. It was terrifying. She'd be confronting the same people who'd fired her father, who'd dismissed her warnings, who'd spent days failing while she watched helplessly. They could have security remove her. They could mock her credentials. They could laugh at a 19-year-old janitor's daughter presuming to solve what Stanford graduates couldn't. But 36 hours remained, and people were suffering, and sometimes the right thing required walking through doors you weren't supposed to enter. Patricia opened her laptop one final time, reviewing her solution with fresh eyes. The code was solid. The analysis was thorough. She'd mapped every attack vector, identified the ransomware's origin, developed comprehensive remediation steps. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't hoping. She knew. At 5 a.m. Friday morning, Patricia dressed in her best clothes, jeans without holes, a clean sweater her father had given her for Christmas, shoes she'd polished the night before. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Not a tech executive, not a Stanford graduate, just herself. That would have to be enough. She packed her laptop carefully, added printed documentation in a folder labeled Prometheus Solution, Urgent, and left a note for her father. Dad, had to do something important, love you. We'll explain everything soon. The bus to CyberCore took 40 minutes. Patricia watched sunrise paint the sky orange and pink, rehearsing what she'd say. How do you convince people who won't see you that you're worth seeing? CyberCore's lobby was chaos. Engineers arriving for emergency shifts, consultants rushing between meetings, security guards managing controlled panic, everyone moving with desperate purpose. Patricia walked to the front desk, heart hammering. I need to speak with someone about the system crisis. The receptionist barely looked up. Do you have an appointment? No, but I have critical information. Everyone has critical information today. If you're with a consulting firm, check in on the 3rd floor. If you're press, media relations is handling inquiries. I'm neither. I work here, facilities staff, but I know how to fix Prometheus. Now the receptionist looked up, really seeing Patricia for the first time. Young, worn clothes, nervous energy, not the profile of someone who belonged in emergency technical meetings. Facilities? You should speak with your supervisor. My supervisor doesn't understand ransomware architecture. Patricia's voice was steadier than she felt. But I do, and I can prove it. Please, just let me talk to one engineer. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Something in Patricia's desperation must have registered. The receptionist hesitated, then picked up her phone. Security? There's a facilities worker here claiming she has information about the crisis. I don't know, she seems serious. Okay. She hung up. Someone's coming down. Patricia waited, gripping her folder, aware she had one chance. One opportunity to be seen before being dismissed again. The elevator opened. Sarah Anderson emerged, one of the few engineers who'd ever treated Patricia like a human being. You're Patricia, right? Sarah asked, approaching. Raymond's daughter. Yes, I know how to fix Prometheus. Sarah studied her, and Patricia saw the exact moment when patronizing kindness shifted to genuine curiosity. You understand cybersecurity? I've been studying CyberCore's systems for 3 years. I sent warnings 3 weeks ago about vulnerabilities. Nobody listened. Patricia held out her folder. Everything's documented. The attack origin, the remediation steps, implementation instructions. I know you have no reason to believe me, but please, just look at the first page. Sarah opened the folder. Her expression changed immediately as she scanned Patricia's technical analysis. Precise terminology, sophisticated understanding, details that couldn't be faked by someone without deep knowledge. Where did you learn this? Myself, community college, discarded technical manuals, overheard conversations, whatever I could find. Patricia met her eyes. I know I don't have credentials. I know I'm just the janitor's daughter, but I'm also right. And people are dying while everyone ignores me because I don't fit the profile. Sarah closed the folder slowly, made a decision. Come with me, now. They rode the elevator in silence. Sarah led Patricia past security checkpoints through glass corridors toward the war room where Cybercore's fate was being decided. Fair warning, Sarah said quietly as they approached the door. They're not going to want to listen. You're going to have to prove yourself immediately. I know, Patricia said. I've been proving myself my whole life. Sarah pushed open the war room door. 20 exhausted engineers looked up. Ethan Brooks stood at the head of the table, looking more frayed than Patricia had ever seen him. And for the first time in her 19 years, Patricia Johnson walked through a door she wasn't supposed to enter, carrying knowledge they desperately needed to hear. The war room fell silent as every eye fixed on Patricia. She recognized most of them. Engineers she'd passed hundreds of times, executives who'd never made eye contact, consultants billing $50,000 a day who hadn't noticed her emptying their trash bins. Now they stared with confusion and irritation at this interruption during their crisis. Ethan Brooks recovered first. Sarah, what is this? We don't have time. This is Patricia Johnson, Sarah interrupted, her voice firm. She has information about the attack, critical information. Patricia Johnson? Daniel Martinez, the lead engineer, frowned. Raymond's daughter? From facilities? Patricia felt the weight of their assumptions. The immediate dismissal, the barely concealed condescension. A janitor's daughter in a war room full of PhDs. The incongruity was so obvious it was almost funny. I know how to fix Prometheus, Patricia said, keeping her voice steady despite her heart hammering. I've been trying to tell you for 3 weeks. Ethan's expression hardened. We have a team of elite engineers who've been failing for 48 hours. Patricia cut him off, surprising herself with her directness. She'd spent 3 years being invisible, being polite, staying quiet. But people were dying. I sent you warnings 3 weeks ago, multiple times, about vulnerabilities in Prometheus's architecture. Nobody listened. We don't have records of any warnings because your spam filters automatically reject emails from community college domains. Patricia opened her folder, pulling out printed copies. Here, 3 separate warnings, all bounced back. Detailed analysis of the exact vulnerabilities that are being exploited right now. She spread the documents on the table. Engineers leaned forward, scanning the technical details. Patricia saw recognition dawning. This wasn't amateur work. Daniel picked up one page, his expression shifting. This analysis. This is sophisticated. Where did you... I taught myself, Patricia said. Between cleaning your offices and mopping your floors, I learned your systems. And I noticed what you missed. Prometheus has fundamental architectural flaws. The ransomware works because someone with intimate knowledge of the code designed it specifically to exploit those weaknesses. That's impossible, another engineer said. Our security protocols were written by people who assumed threats came from outside. Patricia pulled up her laptop, ignoring the stares at its cracked screen and missing keys. But the attack came from inside, from someone you fired, Gregory Hayes. The name hit like a physical blow. Patricia saw it in their faces, recognition, discomfort, guilt. Hayes? Ethan's voice went flat. He was terminated 6 months ago for performance issues. He was terminated for questioning your technical decision in public. Patricia pulled up Hayes' employment records, data she'd accessed through methods she wouldn't admit to. You humiliated him in front of 200 employees, then fired him that afternoon. He spent 6 months planning this revenge, mapping Prometheus, finding every vulnerability, timing maximum damage during your acquisition. The room was utterly silent. This is the attack signature. Patricia displayed her analysis. Hayes' coding style, his architectural approach, I traced it 3 weeks ago. I tried to warn you then. You ignored me because my email came from a community college. You ignored me in the hallways because I wore a gray uniform. You ignored me because people like me don't exist in your world. Even if this is accurate, Ethan said, his voice strained, even if you've identified the source, can you fix it? Patricia met his eyes. Yes, I wrote a complete solution, tested it in isolated environments. It works. The ransomware will dissolve in approximately 6 hours with zero collateral damage. 6 hours? Daniel leaned forward urgently. Show me. Patricia opened her code, displaying it on her laptop's cracked screen. Daniel crowded closer, studying the elegant solution. His hands started shaking. This is perfect. The logic is flawless. He looked up at Ethan, then at Patricia. She's not guessing. This will work. Ethan stared at Patricia like seeing her for the first time, which, in a way, he was. For 3 years, she'd been invisible furniture. Now she was the only thing standing between him and complete disaster. Why? He asked, voice raw. Why help us? I fired your father. We dismissed your warnings. We've treated you like you don't exist. Why would you save us? Patricia thought about her father's severance letter. Thought about the elderly man who couldn't access medication money. Thought about the mother whose child's ventilator had failed. Thought about all the people suffering because powerful men had been too arrogant to listen. I'm not saving you, Patricia said quietly. I'm saving them. The hospital patients, the people stuck in traffic, the families who depend on systems you're responsible for, they don't deserve to suffer because you were too blind to see talent without credentials. She paused, letting that sink in. But I have conditions. Ethan flinched. Anything. My father gets his job back. Full position, back pay, formal apology. Done. CyberCorps funds a scholarship program for children of service workers, full rides, no credential requirements, just talent and commitment. Yes, absolutely. And from now on, you listen when people try to warn you, even if they're janitors, even if their emails come from community colleges, even if they don't fit your profile of what genius looks like. Ethan nodded, his carefully constructed identity visibly crumbling. I understand. Patricia pulled out a USB drive, holding it like it was the most valuable thing in the room, which, at this moment, it was. Then let's get to work. We have 30 hours until Titan's audit, and I need access to your primary servers. Sarah stepped forward. I'll get you clearance. Full administrative access. Patricia Johnson, 19-year-old community college student and daughter of the fired janitor, walked to the main terminal. For the first time in her life, she didn't have to be invisible anymore. The next 6 hours passed in intense focus. Patricia worked with methodical precision, walking the engineering team through her solution step by step. Some of them, Daniel especially, transitioned quickly from skepticism to genuine respect, asking questions, learning her methodology, beginning to understand that her approach was fundamentally different from anything they'd been taught. She didn't just see technical systems. She saw how humans interacted with them, how organizational culture created vulnerabilities, how arrogance became the ultimate security flaw. The ransomware works because Hayes understood that Prometheus's real weakness isn't code, it's trust architecture, Patricia explained, highlighting attack sections. He knew security protocols assume threats are external. He exploited the assumption that danger comes from outside rather than from internal resentment. By noon, Prometheus began responding. By 2 p.m., client systems came back online one by one. Hospitals reconnecting ventilators, traffic systems restoring control, financial networks resuming transactions. By 4 p.m., with 26 hours before the Titan audit, Prometheus was fully operational. More than operational, Patricia had fundamentally restructured its security architecture, implementing protections against future attacks that CyberCorps' team hadn't even considered. The war room erupted in exhausted celebration. Someone opened champagne. Engineers high-fived and collapsed into chairs with relief that felt like survival. Patricia sat quietly apart, feeling only exhaustion. She'd proven herself, forced them to see her. But what came next? Sarah approached, sitting beside her. You saved them. Own that. I saved the people who needed help, Patricia corrected. They're just the collateral benefit. The Titan Group audit at 6 p.m. felt almost anticlimactic. Their security team examined Prometheus, tested new protocols, interviewed engineers. Patricia presented her solution with quiet confidence. The Titan representatives were visibly impressed. This innovative thinking, this sophisticated approach, their lead auditor said, this is exactly the capability we're investing in. $2 billion secured. Ethan's company survived, but not unchanged. That evening, Ethan called an all-hands meeting. The entire company assembled, engineers, executives, facility staff, everyone. Patricia stood in the back in her gray uniform next to her father, who'd been reinstated that afternoon with a formal apology letter and back pay. "Today I learned something about this company," Ethan began, his voice carrying none of its usual confidence. "We nearly failed catastrophically, not because we lacked technical skill, but because we lacked humility. We refused to listen to someone who tried to warn us, not because she was wrong, but because we couldn't imagine that someone without credentials might know more than us." He gestured to Patricia. Patricia Johnson, a 19-year-old community college student, saved this company. She predicted the attack weeks ago. She documented solutions while we ignored her. And today, when we were out of options, she walked through our door and fixed what 20 elite engineers couldn't. The room turned to look at Patricia. She felt her father's hand squeeze her shoulder. "I'm announcing immediate changes," Ethan continued. "First, Patricia Johnson is being offered a full-time position as a security consultant with a 6-figure salary and benefits. Second, CyberCore is establishing a scholarship program funding full rides for children of service workers. No credential requirements, just talent." He paused. "And third, I'm stepping down as CEO. Margaret Anderson will take over immediately. My leadership nearly destroyed everything. It's time for someone who actually listens." The room was silent, then slowly began to applaud. Not for Ethan, for Patricia. Raymond pulled his daughter into a tight hug. "Knew you were special, mija. Always knew." Patricia hugged him back, tears finally coming. "We both are, Dad. We always were. They just weren't looking." The media attention hit within hours. "Janitor's daughter saves Silicon Valley giant" trended on every platform. Tech Twitter exploded with commentary about gatekeeping, credentials, and systemic bias. News outlets ran continuous coverage, interviewing Patricia, her father, even other CyberCore facilities staff who shared their own experiences of invisibility. Patricia declined most interview requests, but accepted one, 60 Minutes, because their reach could amplify the message to people who needed to hear it. "What do you want people to understand from your experience?" the interviewer asked. Patricia chose her words carefully. "That intelligence exists everywhere. Talent exists everywhere. What doesn't exist everywhere is opportunity. We've built systems that only recognize genius when it comes packaged in certain credentials, certain backgrounds, certain income brackets. And that means we're missing most of the brilliant people who could solve our biggest problems." The interview aired to 12 million viewers. Within a week, Patricia received scholarship offers from Harvard, MIT, Stanford, all the institutions that would have rejected her application 6 months ago. Job offers flooded in from tech companies eager to claim they'd discovered her. She declined most of them. Instead, she accepted CyberCore's offer with one modification. She'd work part-time while finishing her community college degree. Not because she needed the degree, everyone knew she was qualified, but because she wanted to prove you didn't need Harvard to succeed in tech. Raymond returned to CyberCore in a new role, facilities director. Real authority, real respect, real salary that let him finally stop worrying about car repairs and medical bills. His first act was improving working conditions for every janitor, security guard, and cafeteria worker. Margaret, as the new CEO, transformed company culture systematically. She instituted reverse shadowing, where executives spent full shifts with facilities staff. She created anonymous suggestion systems that actually got read. She hired recruiters specifically tasked with finding talent in overlooked places. CyberCore didn't transform overnight. 3 years of toxic culture couldn't be erased in weeks, but it began changing direction. 3 months after the crisis, Patricia stood in a renovated warehouse in San Jose's working-class East Side. The space would become Code Bridge, a free coding academy for children of service workers. No application fees, no credential requirements, just talent and commitment. CyberCore funded it as part of the scholarship program Patricia had demanded. Other tech companies contributed too, each one eager to be associated with the feel-good story while conveniently forgetting none of them had noticed Patricia until crisis forced attention. Patricia accepted their money without illusion. They weren't funding CodeBridge purely from altruism. They were buying redemption and good PR. But money spent the same regardless of motivation, and the students who'd benefit deserved the chance. Sarah Anderson had left CyberCore to become CodeBridge's technical director. 5 years keeping my head down at that company, Sarah explained. After watching what you went through, I realized I could do something better. Teach the next generation that brilliance comes in unexpected packages. The space filled with donated computers, whiteboards, comfortable furniture. Enrollment applications poured in. Children of bus drivers, hospital cleaners, security guards, all the people who kept society functioning while remaining invisible to the industries they supported. On opening day, Patricia stood before 30 students ranging from age 14 to 22. They looked nervous, excited, uncertain if they belonged. She recognized that feeling intimately. I was invisible for 19 years. Patricia began. I walked past executives every day in a uniform that made me non-existent. They didn't think intelligence could live in someone who cleaned their offices. But being unseen doesn't mean being worthless. It just means people aren't looking in the right places. In the front row, Raymond sat in the suit Patricia had bought him. First suit since his wife's funeral. He was crying quietly, proudly. Patricia continued. This space exists because one company nearly failed catastrophically when they refused to listen to someone without credentials. But it shouldn't take disaster for people to be seen, so we're building something different here. A place where talent matters more than where you came from, where intelligence is recognized even when it doesn't fit traditional profiles. She paused, looking at faces reflecting her own history back at her. You belong here, not despite your backgrounds, but because of them. You understand problems from perspectives most tech workers never consider. You know what it means to be overlooked, to be underestimated, to have something to prove. That's not a weakness, it's your greatest strength. The students began to applaud, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. Patricia smiled. After 19 years of being invisible, she was finally building a world where people like her could be seen. 18 months later, Patricia sat in her small office at CodeBridge, reviewing applications for the third cohort. The waiting list had grown to 1,849 names. Her phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Check the news. Patricia pulled up her laptop. The headline made her smile. CodeBridge graduates lead tech hiring. Companies fight for students from unconventional backgrounds. The article detailed how CodeBridge's first graduating class had disrupted tech recruiting. 28 students, all employed within 3 months, many receiving multiple offers. Their performance at companies was exceptional, not despite their backgrounds, but because of them. They brought perspectives most tech workers lacked, solved problems others didn't see, built products serving communities traditionally ignored. Tech recruiters now specifically sought CodeBridge graduates. The unconventional had become desirable. Patricia's father knocked on her door, bringing coffee. At 57, Raymond looked younger than he had 2 years ago. The stress of financial insecurity had lifted, replaced by pride in meaningful work and watching his daughter transform an industry. Saw the article, Raymond said. Your mom would be so proud. We both did this, Dad. Patricia gestured to a frame on her wall, his old work gloves preserved with a plaque. In honor of honest labor and quiet dignity. There was a knock. Margaret Anderson entered, though she didn't work at CyberCore anymore. She'd stepped down 6 months ago, citing burnout, but really because she'd accomplished what she wanted, transforming the company's culture enough that her replacement, a black woman promoted from within, could continue the work. Came by with news, Margaret said, smiling. The board just approved expanding the Service Worker Scholarship Program nationwide. 20 more companies joining, full rides, mentorship programs, guaranteed interviews. Patricia felt satisfaction, but not surprise. The business case was clear. Talent existed everywhere, and companies mining overlooked talent pools gained competitive advantages. It wasn't purely altruistic, but results mattered more than motivation. There's something else, Margaret continued. Ethan wants to see you. Patricia hadn't spoken with Ethan Brooks since his resignation. He'd disappeared from public life, his social media silent, his speaking invitations evaporated. Last she'd heard, he was teaching business ethics at community college, cosmic irony at its finest. Why? He's writing a book about leadership failures and lessons learned, wants your permission to tell the story accurately. Patricia considered. She'd moved past anger long ago, channeled it into building something better. But Ethan's story was part of hers, and perhaps others could learn from his mistakes. Tell him yes. On one condition. All proceeds go to Codebridge. Margaret laughed. I'll let him know. After Margaret left, Patricia returned to the applications. Each one represented someone invisible, overlooked, underestimated, someone who just needed a chance to prove what they already knew, that they were brilliant. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a video call from her first Codebridge student, now a senior engineer at Google. Patricia, you have to see this. I just got promoted to lead a new accessibility team. They want us to build products specifically for underserved communities. Patricia smiled, listening to her former students' excitement. This was the point. Not just teaching people to code, but empowering them to build technology that served everyone, especially those typically ignored. She thought about that morning 3 years ago when she'd stood outside Cybercore's war room, terrified but determined, clutching a cracked laptop and a solution nobody wanted to hear. Sometimes the bravest thing you could do was walk through a door you weren't supposed to enter. Sometimes being seen required making yourself impossible to ignore. And sometimes the most powerful response to being invisible was building a world where everyone could be seen. Patricia looked out her window at San Jose's working-class neighborhood, where kids played in streets and parents worked 3 jobs and dreams were supposed to be impractical. The waiting list had 1,849 names, 1,847 invisible people ready to be seen. She got back to work.